Prices are up, inventory is up, but buyers' demand, not so much. June's numbers, it tells a very different story. In Montgomery County, Maryland, inventory surged over 70%, yet prices barely budged. Buyers are backing off and sellers, they're starting to blink. So let's talk about what this all means for you. All right, let's start with the broader DMV market, and that's DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia. Across the Washington, DC metro area, the median sold price hit $650,000, and that's up 1.6% from last year. It's still a record, but it's also the smallest annual price gain we've seen in 2 years. Inventory, though, way up. Active listings across the region jumped 41% year over year. We now have over 10,000 homes on the market, which has given buyers more room to breathe and to negotiate. So at the same time, new pending sales were down nearly 2%, and days on market, it crept up to 12 days, which is 5 days longer than last June. So while the market isn't crashing by any means, we're clearly in a slower, more balanced phase compared to the frenzy of 2020 to 2022. Now let's zoom into Montgomery County, Maryland, because this is where I live, work, and help families every day. So in June, the median sold price dipped just slightly to $645,000, and that's down 0.8% from last year. Closed sales were up 4.3%, meaning homes, they're still moving, but more slowly. Days on market increased to 11 days, up just 7 days last year. Active listings surged by 70.8% with over 1,700 homes on the market. And we now have 2.2 months of supply, which is up nearly a full month from June 2024. Just for reference, 6 months supply is where it's a seller's market. So we're clearly not in a seller's market. We're nowhere close to it. What you're seeing now is the well-awaited inventory surge. So this is the most inventory we've had in a while, which means that even though home prices are historically high, buyers are starting to push back on overpricing, and they're winning. That said, homes in desirable neighborhoods that are turnkey and priced accurately, they're still seeing multiple offers, not just the frenzy we saw in the spring. So think 2 offers instead of 4 more. And buyers, they aren't waiving everything this time around. Now let's take a look at what's happening by property type right here in Montgomery County, Maryland, because the trends, they're very different depending on what kind of home you're buying or selling. All right, for detached homes, the median price held steady at $875,000, and that's flat year over year. We've had 552 closed sales, and that's up 3.2% from June 2024. Days on market ticked up to 9 days, just 3 days longer than last year. But the inventory jumped big time, 922 active listings, and that's up 59% year over year. Months of supply rose to 2.22, which is the highest we've seen in quite a while. Not quite where we need to be, but we're slowly getting there. So detached home, they're still in demand, but buyers now have more options and more leverage. So sellers, pricing right is key. Now let's talk about townhomes. Median price rose slightly to $534,000, and that's up 1.7 from last June. 208 townhomes sold, a 6.7% increase, but the pending sales dropped by almost the same percentage. Inventory, well, that's up a massive 82%, with 325 active listings on the market. Months of supply now sits at 1.87, and that's up from just 1.10 a year ago. So this segment is definitely cooling. Homes are still moving, but the spike in listings mean that buyers, they're taking their time and competition has eased up a bit. All right, condos. The median price is $330,000. That's up 4.2% year over year. Closed sales, 238, and that's up 4.8%. from last year. Days on market, 18 days, which is 9 days longer than June 2024. Active listings, 524, that's up 88% year over year. Months of supply, 2.51, almost double what it was last summer. So condos, they're sitting much longer than they were earlier this year. So if you're a buyer looking in this category, you're in a strong negotiating position right now. All right, that was a lot of numbers, a lot of percentages. So let's talk about what this all means. So if you're a buyer, especially in Montgomery County, Maryland, this might be your moment to make a move. And hear me out. With more inventory, slower competition, and sellers finally open to negotiations, especially on homes that's been sitting on the market for a few weeks. And if you're a seller, the game has changed. And a lot of sellers it's taken them some time to realize that the game has changed. Pricing your home too aggressively in July could cost you valuable time and leverage. Buyers, they are watching rates, they're doing the math, and passing over overpriced listings. If your home isn't move-in ready, staging and pricing matters more than ever. This market is no longer about testing the waters. It's about being strategic and informed. So what we're seeing right now is a market that's shifting, not crashing, not booming, just adjusting. So if you're feeling unsure about whether to buy or sell this summer, you're not alone. This is when strategy matters more than speed. And that's where I come in. If you want help making sense of all this in the context of your own move, whether it's now or 6 months from now, I offer personalized updates by neighborhood and price point, not just the headlines. You'll find my contact info and free relocation guide below. Drop your questions in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, like and share with someone else who's watching the market. Thanks for watching. Bye.